All right. We have Alex Christoforou here of the Duran. You are back on YouTube, but you were suspended. And we were just talking before we started this live stream about how the heck we're going to talk about this without myself becoming another casualty. And I've gotten plenty of jail time in YouTube. I don't want to give them the fuzzy feelings I know they get in their headquarters when Allison Morrow comes up on their radar again. So we're going to try to be a little careful on YouTube. We're going to probably cut the stream at some point and just continue on Rumble and ROKFIN. So make sure you're watching over there. Or at least you have the links. They're in the descriptions. Check them out. Alex, you have a pretty hardcore following with the Duran. So I almost feel like I don't want to waste your time explaining who you are or what you do. But I don't know, maybe you could just give us the brief elevator pitch for the Duran. What's the Duran?
We're a geopolitics channel. We just cover mostly world events, world news, and that could include, of course, the United States, but it also includes Europe, the EU, Asia, China, Russia, Latin America, Africa, whatever is making news around the world. We try to cover it. We do have a little bit more of a focus just because of our knowledge and where we are in Europe, for Europe and Russia, EU, as well as the US, because I spent a lot of my time living in the US as well. So, but we try to cover wherever the news is breaking around the world, we try to cover it.
When I was looking up any info on the Duran, mostly because I needed a picture for the thumbnail of this video, but also because I just wanted to try to find some articles about your suspension. I saw like even the State Department for Russian disinformation comes up. They really have you kind of pinned as some kind of Russian disinformation agent or something like that. I'm not really quite sure. But the weird thing is you got banned for medical misinformation. So I think that's even weirder because like I said, I mean, it's like USA Today. I don't trust any of them. So I'm not trying to say you are. I'm just saying, I was looking at like USA Today is like, some people think they may be a site for Russian disinformation. And then the State Department on like how Russia spreads propaganda, that comes up when I search it. But I thought it was very odd that they get you for medical misinformation. Did you think that was weird?
Very weird. But, back when everything broke, with the thing that we're not allowed to say back when it broke. I mean, it was news because it affected every country. So, I mean, it was a massive, if not the biggest news story of our time. And so, I mean, how do you claim to be a news channel and not cover a story like that? And it affected every country all around the world. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. So we did cover it, and then I don't know if you remember, Allison. They had then social media came out with their rules about it, and everything like that. And so you kind of had to either water down your coverage of this thing, or you just had to stop covering it. But it was so hard not to cover it because it affected everybody, every country, every government. It was the only people they let talk about it were, of course, the mainstream media. And there was only one narrative that you were allowed to talk about, and that was it. And we never talked about that thing from a medical position. We always talked about it from a financial, economic, political position, because for us, the medical part never, I mean, it was interesting, but it was something that we couldn't talk about intelligently. But what we could talk about was how does it affect the economy? How does it affect the geopolitics of things? How does it affect society and elections and things like this?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, basically there's this Tucker Carlson segment where he discusses a U.S. Army PowerPoint that references Satanism. I think that's as far deep as I'm going to go. Yeah. And yes, I think I can say COVID, related to COVID, and then, public health policy. Okay. How about we leave it at that? And then we can go into more depth when we're off of YouTube. But you're just doing a commentary video. So two things I've picked up on that I thought are kind of interesting that I see as a trend happening right now. Number one is this video was from 2021. So they're going through your old stuff, which they were doing to me too. And I've talked to a lot of other creators who are saying the same thing, just like out of the blue, something from a year or 2 years ago all of a sudden disappears and they're banned for it. And the other thing too is I don't know if the Tucker Carlson clip is on YouTube. I didn't check to see, but I have gotten pinged for doing commentary on mainstream media videos that are up. But if you play them and say, hey, and you point it out, you get in trouble, but they're allowed to fly under the radar, which is also very odd to me. So yeah, let's talk about those two things.
Yeah, I mean, but before we get to those two things, can I just make one comment about the U.S. News thing and the State Department thing, the Russian? Yeah, real quick. That U.S. News or these articles, they always have me as someone that was born in Moscow, which is crazy. I wasn't born in Moscow. I'm not a Moscow native. I've lived in Moscow for a year, and that was it. So I mean, they always say this: I'm born and raised in Moscow, which just shows the level of disinformation that they're putting out there. So that I just wanted to clear the record there, which is
well, and I mean, no, that's such a good point too. And like when I always think it's funny when they point out that this YouTube channel is spreading propaganda or YouTube channel as if they don't use YouTube influencers or TikTok influencers spread their propaganda all the time. I mean, like the whole Fauci parade at the beginning of COVID, where he was going on all these million subscriber plus channels and talking about masks and the vaccines and stuff. It's like, if you spot it, you got it, as they say in AA. And I just think it's funny, like they're pointing it out because that's exactly the tactic they use. They go out into all kinds of podcasts and YouTube channels to spread their propaganda. So it's just dumb to me anyway.
Exactly. It's dumb. And then they try to find stuff on specifically the Duran. They try to find stuff on us, but they can't because, we're just two guys, one guy in London, one guy in Greece and Cyprus. We sell t-shirts, and that's how we do things. And how do we report the news? We just use logic and common sense to report what's going on in the world. And that's how we do things. And they always say, oh, there's these guys are sponsored by this. No, there's nothing. There's no sponsorship. There's nothing there. It's just two guys that sell Duran t-shirts, Duran mugs from the Duran shop. And we do our YouTube and Rumble and ODYSEE, and, we do our videos, and that's it. So I just wanted to clear the record there. Going on to the Tucker commentary, those videos that I was doing back then, the funny thing is those videos that I was doing when I was sitting behind the desk, I was so bad at it. And they got the views were so tiny. And I just wasn't even good at it. And I was just trying to experiment and find my groove. And I said, okay, let me try some commentary videos. Let me try this. And the Tucker Carlson video, the main point of it was, why is the U.S. Army bringing in, for lack of a better word, religion? While I don't consider it a religion, but why were they bringing in this type of religious dogma or this slide, which really didn't make much sense? And I think we were talking before the show. We were like, the slide didn't even make much sense. But why are they bringing it into an army recruitment presentation? It has nothing to do with the U.S. military or the army or anything like that. And I think that was the main point that not only I was making, but Tucker Carlson was making. There was no medical advice given by anybody.
I kind of wonder if somehow it was like Satan, somehow the AI picks up on Satan related to a particular, again, public health policy or treatment. And then they're like, oh, you're saying that that's what it is, or I don't really know, but there's very little recourse for a creator, even somebody that has the following that you have a lot of subscribers on YouTube and you probably make them a lot of money. And even you guys have a hard time getting, I'm sure, a live person on to even talk about whether this should really be treated that way or whether that was a fair assessment of what was going on in your video. There's no way to get them other than to wage some kind of public campaign against them on Twitter. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I mean, you've experienced it. I've experienced it. You wake up one morning, you get an email, then you're like, okay, and it just has this term, medical misinformation. Then you see that the video was from like a year and a half ago, and you're like, you don't even remember. I mean, you know how it is. You're creating so much content on a daily basis that from a year ago, you're like, what video was that? When did I talk about anything related to medicine? I never do stuff like that. And then you have to go back and you have to see exactly what video they're talking about. And then you have to rewatch it, familiarize yourself with it, and then you get into the whole appeal process, which is also just, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what you need to say. They just say, if you want to appeal this video, you know, write a paragraph, and that's it. And you're like, okay, what exactly was my mistake? What did I say? What part in the video ticked you off? Was it in the beginning? Was it in the middle? What words? At least give me a hint so I can defend myself. But no, and they keep it obscure like that for a reason.
So what do you make of the historical censorship, like going back in time and it not being, and I mean, it was not necessarily always immediate for me, but it would be usually within a day or two. Now to have videos that are not only, what I think is odd is how far back they're going, but there have been some videos that I've had removed where they'll take them out and then they'll send me a message saying, we're not going to suspend you this time because maybe you didn't know, or you know, they give all these weird reasons for why this time they're not going to suspend me. They're just going to remove my video. I want to be like, you know what, YouTube, grow a pair. Like, if I'm not, you know, following, you know, just suspend me. Like, don't just take down my video and be a weenie about it and leave me on the platform. Because to me, it's like, either you're saying the video actually is fine. It does fly past our community guidelines. We just don't want it there. So we'll leave you on your channel. I mean, I just don't get it. It's like, if I'm really that much of a rebel and I'm causing you so many problems, and just suspend me and don't just take my videos down. So that's another weird thing I've noticed too, that they're like, take your videos down, but they'll leave you alone in some cases. And then I don't know really what to make of the fact that it seems like, again, I've only been on YouTube doing this kind of stuff for a couple of years, but I never had the issue of them going back in time that far until, I don't know, probably say the last few months. So what do you make of that too? Just like, did something change with their algorithm? Why do you think they're going back in time now?
I have a hunch. I mean, an opinion. That's why I think they're going back and checking stuff with related to this thing, this condition. I have a fear that this might be something that maybe tried to be reintroduced to society come winter. So maybe I mean, it's a little bit conspiracy theory like, but maybe they're going back to just kind of scrub things. Maybe it could be because of our coverage, you know, related to the conflict in Ukraine. That could be just kind of to send me a message. I don't know. I wish they would tell me.
Yeah.
I wish they would tell me so I would know. And if it's something that we can discuss with an account manager at Google, that would be great. As you know, two adult, you know, people, we could talk about it and see what needs to be done. As far as going back to videos, I think that's crazy because, you know, at the very least, their policy should be, look, from this day, you can't talk about this condition. From this day, August the 4th. Anything before that, we're not going to touch because we didn't tell you that you can't talk about this. But from this day forward, you've got in the terms, you've got in the warning, don't say the word, you know, don't say that word. We don't care if you're a doctor. We don't care if you're not on an approved list. You can't say the word. Okay, fine. I got it. It's your platform. At least you're being clear with the rules. Fine. But, you know, you just can't make up a rule and then say, oh, and by the way, whatever videos you made 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you know, that you probably have forgotten about anyway, we're going to go back and get you on a strike with those as well. That's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they change their rules over time and then hold you accountable to previous rules, but they don't hold everybody accountable to it. I don't know. How do you think this ends? Do you think it just goes this direction where YouTube eventually just becomes like a sort of a digital arm of establishment media? Or do you think someday somebody wins a lawsuit and it goes back to the way it was 12 years ago?
I think that's what YouTube, I think you're exactly right. I think that's what YouTube wants to be, is kind of a more curated, you know, establishment media type of platform. I think that is really what they want to be. I mean, I know that no matter what I do on my feed, no matter how many times I click not interested, I always get mainstream media news recommended to me. Yeah. Always, no matter how much I click, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. Don't show me this again. in a week's time, I've got Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and all of these videos suggested to me. So I think that it's in their plan to become more curated as far as news goes, to become more curated and more establishment media, like maybe the 5,000 mainstream media sites from all around the world. And that's going to be YouTube news, period. And maybe some independent channels will make it through, like, say, I don't know, Young Turks or something like that, which is on the approved list. Okay, maybe they'll let those slide in, but everyone else is just gonna have to find a new home. And I think maybe from a business perspective, they say this is better for us. I don't know. Maybe from a risk perspective, I don't know. Maybe they're getting pressure from the 3-letter agencies who say, look, don't give these guys a home. People, don't give all these people a home.
It definitely seems to have coincided with amplified pressure from the government. Though my husband was saying earlier, don't you think it's weird that we don't hear about Section 230 as much anymore? When I first started covering censorship a couple of years ago, every politician was talking about Section 230. I never hear them talk about it anymore. Why do you think that is?
Probably election cycles. I think the whole Section 230 thing was pretty hot during the elections, before the election, say 6 months before, maybe a couple months after. I think now that the election has run its course, there's just no need to talk about it anymore. And I believe that the big tech also they managed to deal with it with their lobby groups and their lawyers, and they've got both parties on side. So, to me, it was something that the politicians talked about. They weren't really going to do anything about it. And now that it's run its course and they got the government that they wanted and everything worked out the way they wanted it to work out back then, they just kind of, memory hold it. And maybe the next election cycle, it'll come up again, maybe, but hopefully this time the people will be like, look, don't just talk about this. We need to figure this out.
Yeah, you're right. Well, maybe somebody released the pressure because they got what they wanted, or hey, if you shut up, we'll leave you guys alone, or I don't know. But okay, before we cut the YouTube stream, last question, because you brought this up before we went live, and I didn't even know about this. This channel just got banned. Steve Will Do It had over 4 million subscribers. It says that YouTube did not specify what content led to the permanent ban. They are Canadian American pranksters, content creators, and businessmen. And this is what we all get. It's a form email. Sorry, your dreams are crushed. We know this is disappointing for you, but we're not going to change our minds. Unless you come after us and then everybody hates us, in which case sometimes we might change our mind. Anyway, I don't know how they make their decisions about what content is viable for the platform, like how they even come up with what's harmful or not harmful. For a while it was firearms. You couldn't talk about firearms. Then, there's public health stuff. Now there's geopolitical issues. You can't talk about it in a certain way. What do you think is ultimately at the root of how they choose what is going to be on their naughty list?
Gosh, I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know this channel. I don't know what this guy talks about. It says he's a prankster. Okay. But 4 million subscribers. I mean, that's a lot. That is a big, big channel. And for them to nuke a channel like that, of that size, to me, it signals that they don't have a problem, getting rid of popular channels either that have huge followings. They're not worried, because sometimes you think as a content creator, you think if I just get to 100,000, then I'm in a kind of safe zone. They're not going to do anything to me. If I get to 50,000, then I'm in a safe zone, because they're going to say, you're getting big. Or if I get to 1 million, there's no way they'll touch me because I have a huge following. They'll get a lot of backlash. This shows me that they really don't care about how many subscribers you have. If they want to get you, they're going to get you.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's true too. It's a good point. Yeah. There's no such safe zone, which at the end of the day is why we all have our channels on other platforms, which is where we're going to go now. So if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll see you over live on Rumble and ROKFIN. The links are in the description. Go over to Locals. We're both on Locals. I actually, you know what? I'm going to show my Locals real fast because I got some questions ahead of time from people. That's one of the benefits of being at my Locals is that when people like Alex come on, you can ask them questions yourself, go direct with them, see if mainstream media has got them right, if mainstream media is full of BS, you know, all that good stuff. But I have a bunch of questions for you, Alex, that we'll get to like right away on the other platforms. I just don't feel like asking them on YouTube because they bring up some sensitive topics. And especially, you know, you guys have been covering Russia, Ukraine, and that's, you know, that I think that's probably the latest of YouTube's sensitive topics. And so, you know, we'll go into that in depth. So I hope everybody goes over to AlisonMara.locals.com. You guys are the Duran.locals.com.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Check them out on Locals too. And then join my editorial board, post questions ahead of time for interviews. We hope you see you on the other platforms. Have a great weekend.